What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is gonna be a banner review for the Mythic banner that we're getting tomorrow, featuring Bramimond as the new Mythic unit. So absolutely no one in a million years saw this coming, because he's not even like the most popular from the 8 legends. Athos is way more popular, and a lot of people were theory crafting Athos as a colorless mage because of his mastery on magic, but it turned out to be Bramimond. So for those of you guys who not know, Bramimond is one of the 8 legends of FEH. So he's like one of the most powerful known characters in that universe, in Blazing Sword and Binding Blade. And he is basically like a husk of a personality, because he mastered dark magic to a degree that he had the side effect that he no longer has any original personality. He copies the personality of the people around him, and that's the reason why you see 4 voice actors for a single unit, and 3 of them are the main lords of Blazing Sword: Hector, Lyn, and AIRDLC:. And Ray Chase is also a voice actor for Roy, but that's actually not for Roy because Roy never ever met Bramimond. It's actually for Alphonse, apparently, from what I'm being told by a lot of people on Twitter. Seeing as how, like, he has got the same voice actor in Japanese as Alphonse. Because Ray Chase in English, like, voices so many notable characters. It's kind of insane. And a lot of people, including me, were thinking, like, this is foreshadowing of Mark. Like, Mark will have Ray Chase as his voice actor whenever Mark comes out, the tactician of FE7. But nope, it's Alphonse. So really interesting in that regard. I absolutely cannot wait for the voice lines of Bramimond. It's gonna be so much fun, and his art is also really amazing. So overall, I really like Bramimond as it is, just from the aesthetics. Now him as a unit, he is a colorless infantry mage, and colorless mages were data mined. I even did make a video about that, if you guys remember. And he's a dark mythic hero, which makes sense because he has mastered dark magic. And he gives attack buff in the dark season to his allies who have got the dark blessing. So this is really powerful for infantry pulse teams, just based on this, just the fact that he's infantry and the fact that he gives attack buff. And infantry pulse teams are really easy to put together, even for a free-to-play player, because Marissa is in the Grail pool. So I'm actually really excited as a person who runs infantry pulse teams for Bramimond. And being a colorless mage means that he doesn't really have any kind of weapon strangle disadvantage, unless he of course faces a Raven Tome mage. So yeah, Bramimond is looking really interesting, really excited for him. And his weapon is Void Tome. This kind of surprised me because he's the original wielder of Apocalypse Tome, and he didn't come with that, so I guess they're planning to give Apocalypse to some other AIRDLC unit. So Void Tome gives him +3 attack, so it's essentially a 17 might tome. And at the start of combat, if the foe has got more than 50 attack, or if the foe has got any kind of penalty active on them, then it grants Bramimond +5 attack, defense, and resistance during the combat. And it has got another effect. So at start of combat, if the foe has got more than 35 speed, or if penalty is active, he makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. So this makes me think that he's not going to be very fast. He's probably going to be slow with good amount of bulk. And these conditions are just super easy to trigger. Like, you might as well not even make them any kind of condition, because any kind of good unit is probably going to be having more than 50 attack or more than 35 speed, and it's super easy to have penalties on units with stuff like shrine structures, chilled skills, sabotage skills, all of those kinds of things. So this is going to be pretty consistently active. He has got Luna as a special. They already know people are going to be running him on infantry pulse teams, so Luna as a special is actually really good. And you could just run that unless you're running like an impact skill with something like Ignis or Glacies, depending on how his bulk turns out to be. And he's got attack, defense, push 4. Once again, this makes me think that he's a tanky unit because he gets a guaranteed follow-up attack from his weapon, and he has got a defense push, so I think he's going to be bulky. He's got lull attack resistance on his slot B, which is so good because he's able to ignore any kind of attack buff. And attack buffs are just super common. Everyone is going to be running attack buffs on their team. And this kind of lull skill also means that he's able to do pretty well against Blade Tome units. And like, having this in combat debuff is obviously going to be nice for his bulk and also for doing more damage to the opponent. And his slotty skill is an exclusive skill known as Impenetrable Dark. So during combat, it disables skills of all foes excluding the foe in combat. So this might seem a bit confusing to some people, but it basically means that he wants to 1v1 the opponent. That's it. All of the other skills from the allies of the foe are just ignored. This means that drive skills, goad skills, ward skills, any of those invisible buffing skills are completely ignored, including Brave Lucina's Weapon Refine, which is a super common in Aithyrate's offense when you combine that with Brave Ike. So he completely ignores that, which is a new thing because like for the longest time, intelligence systems have been making weapons that target foes who have got visible buffs, but this is the first time I think that they have targeted invisible buffs. So all of those skills, as I said, are not going to be taken into consideration when you're going to be facing Bramimond with a certain unit. So as I said, he's just going to be trying to 1v1 the unit by ignoring all of the help they're getting from their allies. So this means that Lucina and Brave Ike is not going to be a thing against him. This also means that Tharja's Hex Weapon Refine or Olwen's Weapon Refine is not going to be active against him because he does ignore all of the skills except for during the combat. So that is going to be really interesting. I don't think this really makes Brave Lucina or Brave Ike obsolete because Brave Ike can easily take him on as it is with his Weapon Refine. He's bulky enough and he's capable enough to just take him on. It's just that you're not going to be getting the special cooldown that you would get by having Brave Lucina near him. So that's not the biggest deal, I guess. It's not really as meta defining as Thrasir, just completely making dragons and blue units extinct, in my opinion. So he's looking like a really, really good Aithyrate's defense unit. I don't think he's going to be as meta defining as Thrasir, as I said again, because Thrasir was a really, really big thing in Aithyrate's where she just made dragons and blue tanks completely extinct. If you use any of those in Astro Season, you're going to be having such a miserable time because Thrasir is present on every single team and she's just very powerful. So yeah, Bramimond is still like a really good unit. As I said, he's really flexible. He can be fit onto any kind of team and his slotty skill is also really, really good. Now Brave Ike can struggle against Bramimond, I guess, if Bramimond is running Hardy Bearing Sacred Seal with some kind of AoE special or anything like that, just a very powerful nuking thing. Then yeah, Bramimond would absolutely nuke Brave Ike to shreds, no doubt about that. But yeah, this kind of makes a lot of the super tanking kind of unreliable in a way when you're going to be facing him, because a lot of super tanks depend on support units like Male Corrin, so you're not going to be getting any kind of benefits from them. And Bramimond is looking like a powerful unit in himself where he can nuke a unit all alone because he is going to be having pretty high attack, I think. So yeah, that's Bramimond. Super excited for him. Definitely a really, really good defensive mythic unit. Definitely better than Yune for sure. Yune is not really all that good, honestly, when you compare all of the defensive mythics that we have got for the Dark Season. And he's going to be taking out this Lance Knight by triggering Luna. So he gets like 8 points of extra damage out of Luna. And this is the stats which I'm speculating on him. And just to make this clear, because he's a mythic unit, he has inherent value in Mjolnir Strike and Aithyrate's defense. So regardless of whatever his stats are, he's always going to be having that kind of value. So I'm expecting this stat line on him where he has got 39 HP, which we could see, and I think he's going to be having 38 attack. I'm really expecting him to have high attack. I think he's going to be having middling speed. I don't think he's going to be getting that much min-maxed. Usually, like, these mythic units don't really get min-maxed that much from past experiences, and I think he's going to be having decent bulk. And keep in mind, he's going to be getting extra 5 defense and resistance from his tome, and also attack, defense, push, so he can be incredibly bulky on the defensive side. So you'd really have to watch out for that. And you could always run like an impact skill on his slot A, like Sturdy or Mirror Impact. And for slot B, like little attack resistance is pretty good. You could also run Wings of Mercy if you are into Wings of Mercy cheese. And now let us move on to the other units we have on this banner. Fjorm is still a pretty decent unit because of her balanced bulk. She can be a pretty decent tank, especially in the light season and ether raids. And for a lot of in-game content, you guys see my free-to-play guides, I use her all the time. There she can also hold her own ground and can be a really, really good range check and deal with even abyssal enemies pretty well. So having a decent counter weapon, Ice Mirror does help her be a pretty good range check. But outside of that, she's not really going to be all that useful. Even in Arena, like when the water season is there, she's not going to be scoring all that well compared to some other water legendary heroes, like legendary Chrom, for example. So there, she's not going to be giving you that kind of value, but just as a unit, she is a pretty decent tank. As for fodder, she doesn't really have anything. Shield Pulse is an extremely niche skill, which not a lot of builds really run, so she's pretty underwhelming in that regard. Female Grima's bulk is simply not enough in modern day where there are so many powerful power crept nukes and offensive units. Even in in-game content, she's going to be struggling to tank a lot of those kinds of new units, and she definitely needs a lot of support to function well as a tank. Colorless is really good for tanking because she doesn't really have any kind of weapon strangle disadvantage, and her flyer weakness is covered by dragon skin. But she is really in a desperate need of a weapon refine because there are so many new units now which have multiple effects while having a distant counter weapon. Altina in this banner itself is an example of that. So female Grima struggles a lot because of that. She also doesn't have a very high attack, and that could be a problem. Of course, whenever Earth Season is coinciding with Light Season, you could use her, and we do have Air and Peony in that season, so you could run ward flyers on them and just make her very bulky. And the reason why I say Light Season is because she's just unusable in Astra Season. You're going to be facing too many Thrasirs, and like it's going to be a big liability to have her as a tank in Astra Season. As for fodder, she has absolutely nothing. Rest Smoke, you can have that from 4-star Bronya, so even that is not really unique anymore, and Cancel Affinity is not really all that useful. Legendary Tiki is a 180 BST armor dragon, so she's always going to be having value in Arena in the Earth Season. And as a unit, she's quite balanced. She's not really as defensive as some of the new dragons that we have got, and certainly not as offensive because she has got 34 base attack. And unlike Fallen Tiki, she cannot really have the Solitary Dream buff, which can just give her extra movement. And once again, like a lot of the units in Astra Season, she's just completely unusable if you even want to use her because Thrasir is everywhere. So you might as well use her in Light Season where you could patch up her resistance, but still, having an armor unit in Ether raids is not going to be the best thing. In Arena, as I said, she does have that value, and for most of the in-game content, she is going to be doing pretty well as a tank if you just give her quick riposte, make her into a dual phase unit. And as for fodder, she has got Fierce Breath and Bold Fighter, which you could inherit at the same time. But the thing is that Fierce Breath isn't really all that good compared to Warding Breath or Steady Breath, but I guess if you just want the special cooldown, then it's alright. And Bold Fighter can only be inherited to armor units, so even though those two skills can be inherited at the same time, Bold Fighter doesn't really open up a lot of options, and also Bold Fighter is present on a lot of units, so it's better to go with the merges in my opinion for Arena. But if you really wanted a breath skill, then I guess she can be used for that. Legendary Roy is one of the better infantry sword units that we have got, and being a pair up legendary hero, he's always going to be having that kind of value in allegiance battles. Dragon Bind is a distant counter weapon with dragon effectiveness, so that's really good. And that allows him to run skills like Bonus Doubler or Steady Breath or Warding Breath in slot A. And you could also run any kind of tier 4 stand skill if you want to have that kind of guard effect. And Human Virtue is also a pretty good support skill and also a self-sufficiency skill at the same time, so that is pretty good. His stats overall are pretty balanced, except for resistance where he's lacking by a bit. And as for fodder, he has got Bonus Doubler, that's basically it. Bonus Doubler itself is a decent skill, but you will have to choose between Bonus Doubler or having something like Close Counter, Distant Counter, or any of those many really good slotty skills that we have going. Panic Manner, Panic Weapons, Panic Smoke, and Panic Ploy are pretty common skills, so that is always going to be a big issue whenever you run a Bonus Doubler. You just cannot get hit by any kind of panic status. It's usually a really good skill for the units who already have a distant counter weapon built in. Bramimond is yet another very powerful offensive sword infantry unit, and we have a lot of those. He's still going to be extremely powerful in something like Arena Assault where he can just slay dragons, but the thing is that he's too fixed to his role where like he cannot really run anything else in his slot A, otherwise he loses his uniqueness with Skin Scale. Skin Scale gives him more damage output depending on his attack, and as it is, he has got a pretty high attack, and he gets even more attack from his Draco Falchion. So sword infantry units always get power crept time and time again, just having another powerful offensive unit every time, outdoing the last one. He faces an extreme amount of competition, even just as a Dragon Slayer in the sword infantry category. We also have Legendary Roy in this banner itself. So as for fodder, he doesn't really have too many good skills. Only threat and attack speed is the skill which you could fodder him off for, and that's the skill you're going to be using mainly on your arena team for scoring purpose, as it's a high scoring slotsy skill. And a lot of units who don't really have a preferred weapon need that kind of high scoring saucy skill to have their max score in Arena. Brave Micaiah in general is a very powerful unit because of having the dual effectiveness, and she's actually one of my favorite units to use. I have used her extensively in pretty much everything in every game mode, including Ether Raids in Astra Season. And Light of Dawn not only having the dual effectiveness also gives her more stats depending on the penalties on the foes. And as I said, it's super easy to get debuff on the opponent with stuff like Panic, the chill skills, Sacred Seals, and even her own Yune's Whispers helps her a lot with that. And Micaiah is just very useful in Arena Assault in all of the game modes, and even in Ether Raids actually, because you're going to be facing some cavalry units here and there, and because of her visible high resistance, she is going to be doing pretty well against a lot of the mage nukes that are present in that game mode a lot of times for a lot of teams. And you guys have seen me use her in a couple of free-to-play guides where she can also tackle some really tough abyssal maps with ease because of her effective damage. Outside of being a nuke, she's also a really good support unit with Yune's Whispers, which is basically a combination of sabotage, attack, and speed, and that has got a lot of value because you could combine that with probably Fan or with Spy's Dagger on Matthew or with any of those weapons, and you can get a lot of mileage out of that. The only weakness that she has got is that she has got pretty middling speed, low defense, and the flyer weakness. Some of those can be patched up by having her in the Astra Season with double Naga, where she could get more defense, so she can act as a pretty good balanced tank, which is how I use her actually, as a vantage tank basically. Middling speed is kind of hard to get rid of without a lot of merges or a lot of speed stacking, so that's always going to be an issue, but regardless, she can be a really good range check basically because of her high resistance, can be a good vantage tank because of having dual effectiveness, high attack. And as for fodder, she's got attack resistance, bond 4, and ground orders. So bond 4 is really good for arena scoring, once again a tier 4 skill, and it's not really all that useful for Ether Raids because you should keep your units away from each other so that they do not get sniped. But outside of Ether Raids, like, this is a really good skill because it also ignores the penalties to attack and resistance for that unit. And ground orders is also a really good utility skill for increasing movement of your units. This can of course be really useful in arena where you are just going to be missing any kind of positional skill like reposition or drawback. So there it could be useful if you're just running one flying unit. And even in Ether Raids defense, this can really add up to the flexibility of your team to make your team's movement unpredictable in a sense. So ground orders is pretty notorious for that. Brave Camilla was pretty much a colorless mage before colorless mages were officially a thing because she is a very powerful nuke as a staff unit, and that is kind of hard to do because staff units cannot have access to offensive special. So her weapon is basically a buffed up gravity staff, and gravity is pretty good for crowd control for kiting the enemies, so it does have a lot of usage there. And she also has attack speed push 4, which is just extremely good as a fodder, just such a universal skill which you could give to so many offensive units. And because of the damage that you're going to be receiving every time you use it, it does have good synergy with stuff like Desperation Vantage and those kinds of skills. So Brave Camilla, pretty good unit. Not a lot of staff units can get as offensive as her, and because she's a flyer, she does have pretty good mobility as well, and attack speed push 4 is a good fodder. Thrasir is one of the best mages we have in the game, and definitely the best defensive mythic hero we have. Thrasir is just so flexible on Ether Raid's defense teams. You could run her with any kind of team, and you can also run her in an infantry pulse team. It's really cheap to build, even for a free-to-play player, because Marissa is in the Grail pool, and Thrasir can be just a devastating unit to have. Thrasir is a meta-defining unit in Ether Raids. You cannot use blue super tanks or dragons in Astra Season, otherwise you're gonna get thrashed up by so many Thrasirs that you're gonna be facing in pretty much every match. So she's a really good unit to have if you are interested in running defensive mythic units in your Ether Raids defense. I know many people who don't really care about Ether Raids still run double mythic units on their defense, mainly because they just want to have the lift reduction, so they don't really have to work too much to offset the lift loss in that season, and they can just comfortably stay in tier 21. And even if you want to build up a serious Ether Raids defense team, Thrasir is going to be able to easily fit in there. Her weapon being effective on dragon units is not only good for Ether Raids, but also useful for Arena Assault. And for in-game content, she is going to be very powerful. She can get extremely fast with Eye Finger and Killing Intent. So Flashing Blade combined with that, giving her true damage and accelerating her special, gives her a really good nuking potential. And Killing Intent in general is such a good skill. This is just a much better Desperation as it is. So with Thrasir and 3 Dancers, you can clear a lot of stuff in in-game content. And as I said, in FEH, she is the defense queen pretty much when it comes to defensive mythic units. As for Fodder, she's got Flashing Blade 4 and Panic Smoke. You could inherit both of these skills at the same time if you fodder off a Summer Aιλ़ģr for Flashing Blade, but the thing is that not a lot of units can make full use of this kind of skill, which depends on their speed. It's a tier 4 skill, so it's gonna be useful in arena scoring. And Panic Smoke is pretty good because visible buffs are used a lot, but the thing is that Panic Smoke is better in the hands of AI than it is in the hands of player. In the hands of player, you wanna panic the unit before you engage in combat with them. So in that case, like stuff like Panic Ploy or Sudden Panic is gonna be much useful to you. And in the hands of AI, of course, Panic Smoke is pretty good. And even if Thrasir goes down in FEH's defense scenario, she's still gonna be having that panic status on the foe. So that is definitely pretty useful. Altina is a very powerful unit, having distant counter built into her weapon and also the dual phase brave effect. That is extremely powerful for most of the in-game content, and for the game mode where she is made for, which is Ether Raids, she's pretty decent. Don't really expect her to sweep entire teams, because any good team in Ether Raids is going to be having some checks to Vantage strategy, namely hardy bearing users at the back line of the team. So it's going to be hard for Altina to do too much against those kinds of teams because she's not able to snipe those hardy bearing units. And she is more of a better cleanup unit than Naga, definitely. So in Astro Season, the mythics aren't really as good as in the light season like AR and Peony, but still Altina is better than Naga. At least she can hold her own weight and, as I said, can clean up. And for other in-game content, she can also be very powerful, just Vantage sweeping. And we did get Altina this month. So a lot of people are not really going to be aiming for her, but if you do not have a second mythic hero for Astro Season, then she's definitely the one you should go for. Obviously, if you're thinking of using like a tanking strategy, then Naga is the one you should go after because Naga gives you the defense. But if you're just going to be using Vantage strategies, then double Altina is actually not that bad. And Altina herself can Vantage sweep, as I said before, and also can function as a Gale Force unit if you do run Heavy Blade, Quicken Pulse, and Gale Force. So that could happen depending on your strategy. As for fodder, she's not really all that good. Attack, defense, oath. It's good for self-sufficiency, but that's basically it. There are many ways of buffing up a unit, and of course, she can be used in Mjolnir Strike. That mode does value the mythic units a lot. So having extra units, so having merges on her is definitely going to be helping you in that game mode because for fodder, she isn't really all that good. It's better to just merge her up. And that will also increase the lift that you get in Ether Raids. Peony is the best offensive mythic hero we have in the game. Just absolutely fantastic in Ether Raids for the mode that she was made for. And even outside of that, you guys see me use her all the time in my free-to-play guides. Gentle Dream buff is just so good. It gives you the orders buff and opens up so many movement options for your units. And Flower of Joy buff, it can be so useful, and she can be just at a big distance and still provide you with that attack and speed buff. So that is just incredibly useful. And because she's a flying dancer, you can always have stuff like guidance to help you even more with the mobility. And just overall, in all kinds of game modes, she's gonna be extremely good and helpful. She gives you speed buff in Ether Raids, and that is actually a pretty good thing for tanks if you're running stuff like Repel or Close Call because it translates to your bulk. And there it's really easy for her to give you even more speed from Flower of Joy. And if you have double Peony, then you're going to be having a lot of speed. So there she can definitely help a lot. And even if you're not using like a tank, having a dancer as your mythic hero just opens up a lot of team options in general. And because you can run double Peony, that can just lead into a lot of good hit and run strats. Extremely useful for that, and in general for like positioning and stuff, incredibly nice for Ether Raids. And for Mjolnir Strike, she of course has the value. She already comes with dual flying, so she does score better than air in the light season, or I guess light major season, where it really matters. So yeah, she's gonna be pretty nice in Mjolnir Strike as well, once again providing the dance support. Absolutely fantastic unit. As for fodder, she does have Fortified Resistance 4, which is a tier 4 skill, so it's only really useful for arena scoring most of the time. And she also has Blue Dual Flying, which in my opinion isn't really all that good, now that we have units who can easily reach above 170 BST with just one merge. And Blue Dual Flying, like most of the time people are probably gonna give that to their Naga if they're serious about Mjolnir Strike, or they could give this to a unit that they really like and they would like to use them in Arena, kind of like Cordelia or Claire, you know, units like those. And you could inherit Blue Dual Flying and Fortify Resistance 4 at the same time as well, so that is something that could be useful. But most of the Lance Flyers who do require Blue Dual Flying for scoring good in Arena, they don't really require like a tier 4 slotsy skill to get their max score. Mamori is the final unit we have on this banner, and Mamori is also known as someone who power crept the mighty legendary Hector with her Mirage Axe. So not only Mirage Axe can stop follow-up attacks of enemy, but it also gives her +3 resistance at base, and it also gives her +6 defense and resistance during the combat if she's within 2 spaces of an ally. And let's be honest, that's extremely easy to do, especially when she's an armor unit. And as for stats, like, she is incredibly good defensive unit. Having such high mixed bulk is extremely good, and she's kind of min-max as well with her speed, has high 37 base attack. The only thing is that she's lacking Distant Counter, which Legendary Hector comes by default. But if you give her Distant Counter, then she's gonna be a much better tank than Legendary Hector. But because she's a tank, she does have inherent weakness to armor effective weapons. And she's not gonna be having very good movement, so it is gonna be pretty annoying to use her in that regard. But she does have 180 BST after a merge, so she's always gonna be having that kind of value in Arena, being that high scoring unit. And she's just a really good enemy face unit in general. As for fodder, it's pretty underwhelming. Shield Session, in my opinion, isn't really all that good of a skill because the stats you can get from it can vary, and they're just way better slotted skills which you could run on her, and Distant Counter being the best one. Vengeful Fighter is present on a lot of units, and only armor units can inherit that. So overall, this is a pretty good banner with really powerful units and also some good fodder, but every color has a dud. In red color, Altina is going to be dud for a lot of people. In blue, we have Fjorm. Green, Mamori is there, and in colorless, there is Grima, who has got absolutely nothing for fodder. But Brave Camilla is definitely going to be giving a lot of value with attack speed push 4 if we do get her accidentally while trying to get him. So yeah, overall a pretty decent banner, I would say. Does give you good value for your orbs. And for ether raids, it also gives you good value because there are 2 offensive mythic units and 2 defensive mythic units. If you don't really have any of them, or if you want to get another copy of them, then yeah, you should definitely summon on this banner. Just as a heads up, we might get some kind of Fallen banner in April, so if you really like the theme of that banner, then you should save up for that. And we're also going to be getting Choose Your Legends units in August, so if you're thinking of plus and merging a Choose Your Legends unit, then you should, I guess, save up your orb. So that is going to be it for the review. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then please be sure to leave a like, comment, and share this video with your friends. It's going to be helping me tremendously. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can always get the updates to my videos whenever I upload. Because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as the personality of Bramimond. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.